Hello, this is Chad Riffle, instructional consultant with the K-12 Educational Technology Association. Bringing you another video for removing duplicates from a custom report in Illuminate using grouping. Sometimes we end up with duplicate students in our custom reports that we're building in Illuminate. This is caused by two sets of data being tied to the same cell. So let's say you have an assessment like the Dibbles Next Kindergarten Beginning assessment, and it's been taken more than once, so the student has more than one score in the same cell for the same time period. Then you wind up with Illuminate doesn't know what to do with that, so it creates a whole nother data set for each duplicate set of data. And this is how you wind up with duplicate students in your reports. And there are a couple of easy fixes for this. The easiest fix is if you have the ability to go in and remove the bad data. So for this student that you're seeing in my example on the screen right now, you have the same student scored 0 multiple times and then scored a 5 for this specific set of data. You would go in and delete all the zeros out of there so that only the 5 remains. Sometimes this isn't possible though. If you're uploading CSV files because it's a state known set of data like NWEA or sometimes in Dibbles or in iReady, you do not have the ability to go in and delete scores. So in that case, we need to use a different option. A second option is to tell Illuminate to group scores based on an individual cell. So, an example would be if you're grouping by student ID, which is what we always do, you're telling Illuminate that all of the data connected to that ID belongs to the same person, should be grouped so that one row all the way across, all that data is tied to that student ID. Let's go ahead and log into Illuminate, look at a custom report, and I'll show you how to add grouping to a custom report. So now you've loaded up a custom report that you want to add grouping to, and if you are the author of this report or if you have editing rights, in the gray bar here that changes, you will see all the way across an advanced option. If you don't see that, then you're going to want to look down here at who the assessment was created by. So this one was created by test admin, and contact that person in order to get editing rights or to ask them to add grouping to your report. Now, if you're the author or have editing rights, under Advanced on the gray bar, you'll see an option for grouping. When you click on that, it's going to ask you to go ahead and set the grouping up. And there are no instructions on here, so I'll walk you through the process. The first step is to put a 1 in the grouping order for the state student ID. So here's my state student ID column, and I'm going to put a 1 in there. And what that's doing is that's telling Illuminate to group all data that is tied to the same student ID into one row. Okay? Now, that's going to create a problem because if there's two separate scores that are tied to the same cell for the same student, like when a student takes a test twice and has two different scores, Illuminate does not know what to do with that. So if I just click submit here, this report's not going to run right. The next step is to tell it grouping functions. Group functions are the rules that Illuminate follows when there's more than one score for the same cell. There are many different rules that you can tell Illuminate to follow, but there is one rule in particular that we use quite often: comma-separated lists of distinct values. What this will do is it will tell Illuminate that that cell will have a comma-separated list of values and not repeat the same value. So, remember our example of the student who's got 0s and 5s for their score to create duplicates? When you tell Illuminate the group function of comma-separated list of distinct values, what it will do is it will show the 0, all the zeros combined to 1 because the zeros are not distinct, and then a 5. And you'll notice it does it for all of them when I set that on all of them. So this one over here where he had 0s and 4s, or she had 0s and 4s, it combined it to a 0, 4. Now, there are other options in there that make sense. And if you're using performance bands or calculations, you're going to break the report when you tell it to do a comma-separated list of distinct values. If you're using calculations or performance bands, you're going to want to choose between maximum value or minimum value. So what that's telling Illuminate to do is to choose the highest or the lowest score. In our previous example where we had duplicates created by this student who scored 0, 0, 0, 0 and then a 5, if you tell it to do the maximum value, what Illuminate does is it just takes the maximum number and plugs it in. So for that specific student, that would be a score a 5. Using maximum or minimum value will allow you to continue doing calculations. It will also allow you to continue using performance bands. So remember that if you're switching to comma-separated lists of distinct values, you're retaining all the data in the comma-separated list, right? You've got your 0 and your 5, but you're going to lose the ability to use performance bands or calculations. If you need performance bands and calculations, you'll need to choose between maximum and minimum value. You also need to make sure that when you're creating grouping functions, or when you're telling Illuminate to start grouping, you have to, for every single column, tell Illuminate what rule to follow if there are multiple sets of data for the same spot. So you'll have to go through for every one of them and choose a grouping function. If it's something that you know is not, it doesn't work for a calculation or a performance band, comma-separated list of distinct values is probably the easiest option to choose. But if you have a calculation on it, or if you have a performance band set for it, you'll need to choose between maximum or minimum. Now that you've watched this tutorial video on what to do about your duplicates in your custom reports, you should be able to go in and take care of those duplicate students so that each student is one row of data. Just don't forget that if you're using performance bands or calculations, you need to choose maximum or minimum, and that every single column will have to have a rule or a grouping function so that Illuminate knows what to do with those scores. Alright, thanks for watching guys, and good luck.